when you do own your mind, your lovely divine masculine, and your body and heart, your divine feminine, and when, like some of us, you get lucky and you also have lovely Jesus, so unconditionally loving, blessed are those who believe without seeing, the capacity to forgive, the capacity to turn the other cheek, and those who instead believe in a vengeance and vicious God, well, it is what it is. We leave them to the shame cycle because they actively are the self-righteous adaptive child. With rigidity and chaos comes a non-integrated brain, which is why they don't own their mind, and that is also why they don't own their body, their inner child stuff, and therefore through the inner critic, outer critic, and then the fucking, drinking, drugging, and even if they add other unhealthy self-soothing mechanisms, they then isolate and they go only with their in-group, and their in-group also has people who manipulate words and stories from God himself. It's very fashionable. No, it's not. It's actively something that I completely have noticed, but let me leave it alone. So, as long as you meet someone who doesn't own their mind and body, you will notice that they don't wield their life according to an open heart that I got to learn from Jesus and God, and that we're brothers and sisters. They will actively perpetuate unresolved trauma, transgenerational trauma, trust breaks, shame buttons, and think that shaming is necessary in an effort to keep people in a rigid and controlling. This is very much, again, a human being who doesn't own their inner child, doesn't know how to wield their emotional, mental 14-month-old. So they don't know true spirituality, even if they wear a mantle. And that's where the ones of us who instead, we have healed inner child, so all of our emotions, they come up. That's why we have synergy, and that's why we allow. And that's why we are the 5D collective, mystics and not. So you get to do spiritual, self-help, and secular. You don't have to believe in anything of the mystic plane. But yes, some of us have clairs. Okay, so let me read to you these lovely energy cards from my Sacred Geometry Activations Oracle deck. So healing, the frequency of healing, supports our intrinsic ability to restore our health and wholeness by consciously using the information that comes to us through our senses and harmonizing everything accordingly. Synergy, the frequency of synergy supports our allowance and acceptance of not so obvious, never seen before combinations and unions that result in new ways of functioning, working, thinking, relating, loving, and being. It reminds us to embrace the unfamiliar so that new yet exciting co-creations can give birth to a new reality, which is what we're living right now, and allowance. The frequency of allowance invites us to be open to whatever comes our way without judgment, without opinion, without fear, and without resistance. And all of those who have a shame cycle, they don't do any of this, FYI. You'll notice them prancing around like Braveheart. So remember, if you see people who don't welcome mystics, all of us, and they call New Age and mystics that are like us Luciferian, they're not in allowance, and they're not in our 5D collective, which is Christ consciousness, oneness consciousness. It's not because of the religious textbooks. Jesus stood as a restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, and regulating person when you look at what our bodies and the embodied brain are looking to return to. So it's your active mammalian heritage from smart people who have been and do study data. It's not their imagination. Okay, so when we allow, the universe becomes our partner in the wondrous dance of existence and expansion. Sadhguru shares with us this too. When you overflow with humanity, divinity descends. It's not divinity in the sense of you're God. No, God-like, but not with a capital G. It's generator of diversity. It's you being able to be complete consciousness because you have the ownership of your inner child as an adult. Again, the masculine divine, masculine the mind, divine feminine. And our lovely for me, Jesus, because that's where I got my first light body, my confirmation with the Holy Spirit. And I did get good catechism, not the ones who, I didn't realize there were so many people who taught vengeance and revenge and evil. Because see, the way that they talk about this evil God that's going to come punish you, Makes me very sad for those human beings. They got an evil parent who apparently needs to know of Michael Stone's scale and then apparently needs to go to good therapy so that they can get out of the evil button, which is everything that comes from a safety behavior in your survival mode, your reptilian nervous system, the fight response. Evil, yeah. There's nothing Lucifer did. I mean, I know the stories. I actively know that, for example, a person with borderline personality disorder, if they don't know their BP lens, they won't know that they are going to trust less a person that is kind to them, and that they actively seek battle for their partnerships are not partnerships where we lift each other up. No, it's a battlefield where I actively test you by fighting with you. So if everything's calm and happy, I'm going to make a fight. And then I'm going to test you again. I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to switch. You're going to be good and then you're going to be evil the minute you don't do something the way I want you to. And that it's that splitting that actively has a human being going from loving someone to making them out to be a monster, not just pretend, no, actively. And then actively not notice, no, they will notice. That's why how BPD and abandonment wounds can ruin people's relationships. It's because when you're testing, a healthy self-worth person is going to be, what's going on? They're going to be confused. Because a partnership for healthy self-worth brains actively is we're partners, and that means we tango, not we fight. And that's where it's confusing for those of us who are empowered with our emotional mental plane, because we look to talk to people. Oh, when I'm talking, it's because I want to enjoy. Okay, so with that being said, let me go back to allowance. Oh, first I was going to read Divine Masculine supports our strong, focused, and active side, allowing it to express itself while helping us to bring our dreams and ideas into form with kindness and wisdom. So true Divine Masculines are kind and wise, and they do have their heart open, and their Divine Feminine. Divine Feminine supports our receptive, nurturing, and soft side, allowing it to express itself openly and helping us to connect to our intrinsic understanding of our connection to all of creation, which is why we don't keep anyone with a string. The masculines that don't know what it is to be a feminine, they don't understand that nurturing the masculine who can tap into their infinite life's potential in 39 different ways. This lovely rabbi gave me this description, that we don't need to contain you, us, the feminine. You have your own feminine. It's called your own inner child. Your body keeps a score and your mind keeps the count. And the stories you tell yourself, well, guess what? You didn't create the words. Someone gave them to you. So as long as you're not the owner of your unconscious adaptive child pattern behavior or maladaptive, you're not the owner of you. And that's why someone else will be the owner of you. And you can bring to anybody like me all of the books you want. I'm not going to flinch. You're actively a person who doesn't have integration of the brain. I'll notice it, because if you're not a flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, and stable brain, that means you're an integrated brain like I am. If you're not a restorative, embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating person, which means you love all 8 billion people and growing in the absence of belief or with belief, you know that we all have a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. I am here for personal development. So I'm saying one person at a time, healing trauma, one relationship. I'm bringing to you infinite higher human conscious potential. My focus of our conversations are not societal in those opinion. No, I'm talking one-to-one. And I'm saying you will love all 8 billion people, even if you don't hang out with all of them, because you have an equanimous, open heart. That's a somatic empath, which is what any person who is emotionally, mentally, and physically mature, who's an actual mystic, by the way. The other ones, they're 4D mystics and pretendos because they're copying. That's a whole different story. Okay, so integration of the brain. When we have an actual divine masculine and an actual divine feminine, they will have bilateral integration. What comes up does not go back down, and it does not go out. I don't do inner critic. I don't do outer critic. I don't fuck people, feel contempt, disgust, and shame, and leave it at that. I don't do any of it. I go to good therapy, and I get out of anything that is that shame, blame, fault, revenge, because we are attachment trauma informed in 2024. And so we don't have any more excuses, except for people who have For example, avoidant attachment, well, all people are fucked up, so I'm not going to do any more therapy or do the journaling or mindfulness. So there's some people, they do the human suffering love narrative. We leave that alone. Divine feminines, divine masculines, they own their brains, they own their minds, they own their bodies, and then they own functional adult relationships. Because that's what an integrated brain, flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable. So in a state of physiological compassion is what the restorative embodiment self-aware person is at. So if you're in red or yellow, biological rudeness, thanks Stephen Porges, I won't be, because I don't calibrate my nervous system no. I'm an active, independent, differentiated self. My name is Maria. I don't vibe because you vibe. My insula will pick you up, but I know how to recalibrate by differentiating and linking. Thank you, Daniel Siegel, who gave me a suggestion when I asked about it. I said, hey, Dan, so here's the deal. Here's what happens. And he said, okay, Maria. He said, I think you're not differentiating enough, Maria. And I said, I knew what he was talking about because I had just learned about differentiation. And I said, it makes sense. I see. Okay, I'll do more of that. It's not hard. Anyone who's whining about being an empath basically doesn't know how to, in fact, move to compassion, so they get burnt out. I tried explaining it to people. They don't try to move into Jacob brain. Yes, they actively continue to do other stuff. So you can try to explain to someone what to do. If they don't know how to do it, they're not actively trying to say, let me get my emotion of upset, dislike or like, to not be dislike or like, to be open, like a flowing river. It's easy when you have introception. Means, okay, yeah, I can tell. I'm going to open my heart. I'm not going to have any debris in it. You can work with sensations. This is what you feel. So you stub a toe, ouch, okay, the pain's going to go away. Let me keep it open. I don't need to criticize it in my left or right mode. I can actively recalibrate my nervous system to my eustress because nothing big happened, no big deal. But not no big deal by pretending, okay? Integration of the brain. Integration supports our embrace of every aspect of ourselves, allowing what we perceive as a positive and what we perceive as a negative to harmonize in a balanced symphony of life, which is why you then create magic. So it's once you own your mind, your body, your heart, magic, the frequency of magic supports our intrinsic ability to grow and expand beyond this moment, to move toward possibilities and expressions that are as grand and profound as we can imagine. All that is required is our belief in their manifestation. And that is why then you are a complete piece of consistent, expanding consciousness. I can tell you all about it. It's really fun. So day-to-day mindfulness, mindset, and mindset practices, we get to deal with uncertainties, unexpecteds, unwanteds from our hearts while going with the flow. And then I get to tell you it's really easy. That Zen master could do way more, but we leave him alone. The frequency of consciousness supports our ability to focus our attention on all the multidimensional aspects that show up so that we can include them in our reality. And in fact, with consciousness, our lovely Dr. Daniel Siegel, he's the one that I got to learn from about consciousness and change. Let me find my cards. 1 second. But it's really fun to actively notice what these energies and how they feel, the frequency of them. We're going to do another episode as soon as I get done with getting change for you. And that's why we actively don't feel changed. I don't know where I put change. Apparently it doesn't want to show up for us, see? But what I was trying to get to is some of us don't feel change because when you're consistently expanding, your perception expands alongside with it. So here, found it. And that's because your crown chakra is yours. Okay, so when you are a whole self, that's why you have your divine feminine, the body, your inner child, and the open heart, divine masculine, integrated brain, your left and right work together. Your crown is yours, your third eye is yours, your introception, in addition to the 5 senses, so you know how to, again, be mindfully aware and regulating in a healthy self-worth, social engagement, regulating nervous system. So you're not the rigid or chaotic that is the adaptive child. So rigid means they shut themselves out. Chaotic just means they have a reaction, get really frazzled, upset, and they, in either cases, they're porous boundaries and they don't know how to actually have nice, fun time. So, the frequency of change supports our ability to gracefully dance with the forever changing nature of reality. That's why it's a Fibonacci brain. When you tap into the infinite, higher human conscious potential experience of you, and both inward and outward, so that we can appreciate the sweet release of the old and the birth of the new. And you don't forget the old, by the way. It's there. You have it with you like a sack. It doesn't weigh you down, though. The frequency of perception supports our natural curiosity, moving us beyond our comfort zone to find the edges of what we perceive as real and to take a good, hard, deep look at it, which is why that subjective reality stuff doesn't bother anyone. That is a functional adult, because we have a flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable brain that is in the present, because you're in a state of compassion, safe to be yourself with other. I'm not scanning me, not scanning you. I'm my Jacob brain, and in fact, I'm myself. And in that curiosity and in that present, I am now attuning to your nervous system, which is why I will pick it up. Then I'll resonate by speaking to you. If you're an adaptive child, I'll notice it. I'll recalibrate to ensure that I get out of having to have any type of interaction with you that involves your maladaptive and or adaptive child behavior patterns, because they won't be interesting to a person like me. And then I will be able to resonate and trust, continue expanding consciousness, as long as you want to actively build a relationship. The depth of our relationship won't be deep if you're a Cusco. It'll be what is basically weather talk to a person like me, but that's for our next episode. In the meantime, I want to close on out with Leonardo da Vinci. The depth and strength of a human character are defined by its moral reserves. People reveal themselves completely only when they are thrown out of the customary conditions of their life, for only then do they have to fall back on their reserves. And whenever you meet a Cusco, you're going to know that they are not in any way, shape, or form in enlightenment. They furthermore do not know how to handle darkness, because they do not know how to handle change. That's because they don't own their divine masculine, so they're not complete. And they don't know what creation is all about, because they don't know order and peace within them. And even if they're meditating and they think they do, well, it's only if they know stability and equilibrium, where all of us are fruitful together, because the wisdom of your heart and the wisdom of the body and the wisdom of you is in the understanding that every one of us has flaws and imperfections, death and rebirth. We are all people. And so to think that any one is more special or not, that's not wholeness. Wholeness is knowing. Mental, emotional, physical intelligence come when a person is able to transform who they are through that lovely enlightenment. And that enlightenment, let me close on out with another couple cards, involve that transformation of you becoming your functional adult, the inner child of you, every day more, as you learn how to be in a state of prosperity, safe haven, secure base. You regulate your nervous system, you grow relationships that expand you. Hey, Eric, I have a tail and I got a dad, and I got this shit going on. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? So yes, no person that has healthy self-worth needs to heal their child parts. They have all of themselves. And then we work, though, with those who are healing their child parts, their fragments, and they want to renew who they are. So they want to have safe haven, secure bases, and renewal of life, like the Nile River that overflows. So it's nice when you're building divine masculine, divine feminine relationships, and it's not gender specific. It's basically two different sides of a coin, but they're not different in the way that one would think when they're whole. So we'll talk more about that one in the next episode. Actually, I'm going to pause this here. Thank you for stopping by. If you do enjoy content on self-help with spiritual and secular options, of course, one-to-one mentorship, masterclass, and when we get the lovely membership content available, we'll have some of that. Definitely, I'll be integrating tarot and Akashic record readings. That one's a personal one, but Reiki with universal love transmission sessions. So there's distance healing and aspects that can be integrated. So stay tuned. And if you know anybody else who is interested, please share the YouTube channel. We also have audio podcast versions alone. Those are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. There's a lot of them. So I don't enjoy always giving the spiel, but I do know some of you are new here. And feel free to reach out with questions. We do have the opportunity for, if you're curious about something, say, hey, Maria, so what's your experience with this? If you want advice, that's for paid columnists. That's Ask Maria. And you actually write me like, Dear Abby, Dear Maria, this is what I have. And you want to make sure I understand. It's for the paid subscription-based model content. That one is available on our audio alone for now. So it won't be available on YouTube because I cannot actively yet have membership content. But side notes, if you subscribe to the paid audio content and you would prefer it to be video, as long as you have a Spotify account, because Spotify allows me to put up a video, you can have that availability. So in case you're curious and want that option. And that content, though, stays online for all of our IHP paid subscribers. And so you will be benefiting from the advice, but you'll also be sharing benefit with others who will listen to that episode for their own, and they will most likely gain knowledge from your experience, and then what we exchange, although it's not an active exchange, but what food for thought I'm able to give you. And that is helpful to people who are with questions that we all can have, right? But that we don't all think to ask, or some are shy to ask and things like that. And remember, I'm polyamory, so if you have questions about how that works and how it feels from a healthy self-worth person, as well as a mystic. Oh, I have plenty of stories for that one too. In fact, maybe I'll share one of those in our next episode. In the meantime, again, thank you for stopping by.